Okay. Professor Swaran Singh, two questions to you, sir. One, do you think that this can have an impact on a strategic and defense relationship? If you would have read the editorial in one of the newspapers today, the Deputy Defense Secretary in America, instead of calling it Indo-Pacific, sir, has started to use the word Asia-Pacific. And he's the one who's renegotiating AUKUS. So the shift is broader, it seems. Your comments, sir?
There is no doubt, since President Trump is on the lead in showcasing that anger or anxiety vis-a-vis India, much of his team, in case they wish to stay in office, will have to propitiate that sentiment. And we will hear these kind of voices one after another. Just like Trump's distractors within the United States, you heard John Bolton recently, will be really saying that Trump is pushing India towards China and Russia and so on. So this will continue, but if you look at the larger canvas, India-US relationship is very wide and very thick. It's way beyond simply a relationship of imports and exports. And I think that will continue to survive, despite there is going to be a little rough weather, as I mentioned. But the interdependence is built over decades on both sides. So that's not going anywhere. And I think the ideal way, other than speculating about who will get impacted and how much impact will be, when we will get relief, etc., no doubt India's larger macro economy is not going to get impacted, but specific exporters, I'm sure, as was mentioned, will get affected. To me, lessons lie in history. We are lucky to have examples from Trump's first term. You know, in 2018, 19, again, he had raised about 25% tariffs on steel, 10% on aluminium. What India did, India went to WTO, and we found certain amount of relief there. And likewise, several other examples of also at some stage Trump removing benefits of India during the first term on generalized system of references. Okay. India negotiated sector-specific areas, so negotiations will continue and India will diversify, explore other areas. In fact, raise of tariffs of India's exports to US will make these exporters look at other destinations that they were not looking earlier.
Okay.
And it will go other places. Just 30 seconds to give example of European Union, for example, where India, out of $200 billion of apparels and textiles that they import collectively, has a share of $5 billion. Obviously with this negotiation of FTA with EU, if it is accelerated, will open up that market. So there is going to be a transition period, hiatus and short period of, I think, some challenges in some areas. But, this is not the first time India is facing challenges of this kind. And I'm sure sooner rather than later we'll find relief both in terms of Indian export promotion missions, Indian customs promotion missions, India's all kinds of other incentivization and facilitation, which is already kickstarting now.
Sir, let me ask you a broader question, and I open this question to my other two esteemed guests also. Professor, do you think that the Americans are allowing the new administration, both Russia and China, their sphere of influences, marking a slow rise of China even without fighting a war, where Russians have been embroiled in do you think that Americans are allowing both Russia and China their sphere of influences?
I think already for last about 20 years, if not more, you can go back to President Obama's period and his pivot to Asia. US had already recognized China as predominant player in the larger Asian or even Eurasian region. And lately, the fact that Ukraine war has seen, no limits partnership between Russia and China has sort of catapulted China in a very, very different fashion. Now, Trump, the way President Trump has deserted several international arrangements, institutions and norms, which have undergirded US global leadership for almost last century now, particularly after Second World War, is creating that kind of political vacuum. So even if United States, is not deliberately promoting China's rise, and even if Chinese don't want to take it, that political vacuum will see, Russia, China, India taking greater responsibilities, or BRICS
Okay.
taking greater responsibilities. So there can't be a political vacuum. And if United States is ending up creating that political vacuum, at least in the immediate region in Eurasia, Asia, Asia Pacific, etc., other nations will step in. There is no doubt. And who is right now most capable in terms of economic heft, leverages? China obviously is a economy almost catching up with the United States. And if you see the way India is feeling pushed in the fold of Russia and China, and we are going to see in Tianjin at end of the month 3 leaders meeting and reviving the Russia, India, China strategic triangle. It's inevitable. That is how the larger canvas looks to me, and in that sense, the whole almost 4 decades of relative decline of United States is getting only
Okay.
further accelerated.
30 seconds to you, Professor Swaran Singh, and 30 seconds to you, Andrew. I know it's TV, but can really, it's TV, and I'm sorry, I have not invented the medium. Can China and India, despite fighting a war and number of skirmishes, can they have a peaceful rise together, or is just a fable? Professor Swaran Singh.
I think there is not a choice here. India and China, the way they are large-sized Asian, rapidly developing two countries, they will only have to constantly try and manage their relationship. And I think they have been able to manage their relationship fairly well, other than very, very few and far in between aberrations. During the time when they were having huge forward military deployments, eyeball to eyeball on the border, their trade was still rising, going up all the way to $136 billion. So they know how to manage these multiple pulls and pressures. And I think that's an ideal example where, unlike President Trump disrupting the entire relationship suddenly, nothing such happened between India and China, at least so far in recent decades. And therefore, I think that piecemeal or snail pace, whatever way you want to look at it, gradual incremental connect and cooperation will continue despite occasional contestations and even confrontations. And I think that is what also partly worries President Trump, that he's not able to cast a wedge between India and China.
Okay. Andrew, 30 seconds. Is it possible, or is just